Time this morning.
Thanks, Koshi.
There you go.
Well, can our political leaders do anything to fix the problem? Let's ask our big guns of politics this morning, Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey and Labor MP Kevin Rudd, both here in the studio. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Joe, I'll start with you. You're a dad. This is really sad for kids who look at these guys as their absolute heroes. It's sad for Australian sport altogether. What do you think of it all unfolding?
Well, I think it's terrific that there's coordinated effort from government and from sporting bodies to deal with this issue. I can't help but think that we're all left with the impression that the vast majority of professional sports people are involved after the drama of yesterday. And if I were the authorities, I'd be getting it out there as quickly as possible about exactly how far this goes, rather than tarring the brush across every professional sportsman in the country. You know, it is a very, very broad brush that has been, used over the last 24 hours, and I think people need to take a bit of a breath and have a look at whether it really is as broad as what...
Well, as Paul was saying, it's not. It's the vast majority.
Well, and he said somehow the law's prevented it. I thought it was a very good question from you, Koshi. What percentage? 10% in a particular sport? He says he can't reveal that. I find that a little difficult to swallow, to be honest.
Kevin, our major sporting bodies get a lot of government funding. You know, governments hold the purse strings here. What should you be demanding? Should, all very well to wait for ASADA, but should the federal government be saying everyone's got to be blood tested before the start of the footy season?
You've got the professional body which does that, which is ASADA. So what the government's done is introduce legislation to give them more powers. Yeah. What the government's now doing is doubling their resources. Because if you don't have legislative teeth, you don't have the powers to investigate and the resources to do the follow-up, then frankly, it doesn't work. I agree with Joe. The core challenge now is to establish the facts. You know how, we all know around this table, how central sport is to the Australian identity. Why is that? It's not just because we're a physical mob, it's because we actually believe in fair play, and that's part of who we are. And if that is now being torpedoed amidships by this report, the key thing now is to establish the facts. Which players, which clubs? Because I'm a bit concerned too about every person out there who we've all watched, admired, spoken with in changing rooms, everything else, now walking around today with a total cloud over their heads.
Should you tell someone like Paul, mate, you can tell us now? He's saying he's restricted by the legislation for the Crime Commission on what he can say. Do you give him a lead pass and say, mate, put a percentage on it for us, put everyone's minds at ease?
On the percentage question, I agree with Joe, actually. It's a really good question. I think the Crime Commission, knowing how it operates, will have access to, frankly, all the investigatory work, all the classified intelligence briefs. If there's been intercepts, they will know the number of individual cases. The question is whether they regard that as symptomatic or comprehensive, and therefore can they put a number on it. I go in your direction, to be blunt, which is, can you make a general assessment about the percentage of penetration? If he can't, based on what they've done, then let him say so. If he can, then he should do so. But let's get the individual work done. Where I'm sympathetic with what the Crime Commission has done is their powers are to produce reports of this nature, which are then referred to the police and investigatory authorities for action in the courts. That's where the balance of powers lies.
And as we said, it needs to start on Monday. Really quick.
I think even faster, because you're starting to hear already of sponsors reviewing sponsorship, which would be death to sport. So.
Another topic I want to ask you about, leaks from Tony Abbott's office. We've seen quite a few, Joe. Last week, of course, that email outlining his requests for the press club speech, new documents talking about special tax concessions now for Northern Australia. Do you know who's behind it? What is happening to find out who's doing it?
Well, the starting point is, I can go into the processes, but the first leak came from someone walking past an open computer in a public place with a camera and taking a snapshot. A member, is from somewhere else. And the second one, look, the discussion paper on Northern Australia, we distributed widely, including to business and people that have an interest in seeing the food bowl of the north of Australia developed. We don't apologise for consulting. That's what we do, and I think it's totally appropriate to do so. It is a discussion paper. I think Australia needs to have a proper debate about how we're going to generate the food that we need over the next 50 years and how we develop the north of Australia. And what's wrong with that? I mean, honestly, you know, this idea that you've got to close down debates whenever you talk about vision, which Tony Abbott is talking about, is just
I think
absurd.
the point, it's not so much the content, it's just the fact that there are leaks coming.
Well,
We've got an election and you wonder how tight the ship is.
Well, the ship is incredibly, I tell you, it's a lot tighter than Labor, isn't it, Kevin? I mean, it's a lot tighter than Labor.
I think this is called the deflection strategy from the question.
No. There's no deflection here, buddy. There's no deflection here, old China. Let me tell you.
Just with your mob, though, Trish Crossan, you know, dumped for Nova Peris. She claims she was treated badly. Was she?
Well, who knows what transpired in the conversation between herself and the Prime Minister. If you walk into a conversation with the Prime Minister and your job's gone, then I presume your reaction is going to be pretty fierce and pretty emotional. Who knows what happened in the conversation. Trish Crossan is a friend of mine. I've known her for a long time. She's made a big contribution in the Northern Territory. Like any person, if you were bulleted tomorrow, Koshy, I think you'd feel a bit uptight about it. And that's how she would have felt as well. By the way, on Northern Australia, the policy objective is right about developing the north. That's been, I think, a bipartisan view for a long time. But we're about 6 months from an election. Our argument is just this: if you're going to put forward a policy, where's the money? I invested as Prime Minister about $200 million in phase 2 of the Ord, which has been generally welcomed around the nation. Costed out there, infrastructure, expanding the food bowl. When you're 6 months short of an election, where's the money coming from and how much is it going to cost?
Is that the team line that, you know, we're meant to do that? I mean,
no, it's
come
6
on.
months before a poll.
Well, that's right.
Vision is fine.
Well, you
but
released your
always say to
industrial
us-
relations policy a few weeks before the poll. So, 2007, let's be fair income. This is a
dollars,
20-year vision for Australia. And I just say to you, I think it's entirely right we have these debates.
Yep.
I think it really is, you know, it's a serious debate in the national interest over long term.
As long as they're funded.
Always funded.
All right,
Always funded.
gents. Thank you.
for
Have a
joining
good
us this
weekend.
Friday morning. Appreciate your time.